Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the summit. And I have to say, I'm really excited about our next interview. Deborah Cary is kind of a unique person in the event space because, firstly, she's an ex-reporter, so she knows what's going to engage people on, in really short periods of time. But she's also been an event organizer herself as her own business, and now she works for Liaisons, which they put on hundreds of events across the globe every single year. And so, if you're a speaker that is wondering what event organizers are looking for, there's probably no one better to tell you than Deborah. But more importantly, if you're an event organizer wondering what you should be looking for in a speaker, this is going to be some great content for you as well. So, Deborah, thank you so much for joining today.
Hey, it's great being here. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm ecstatic about talking about this first topic because I think for a lot of speakers, they have no idea what they're supposed to put on their one pages, their sizzle reels, like the level of communication. And I feel like answering this question of what event planners appreciate and what they don't appreciate is going to really answer two things. One is what should I do as a speaker, and then answer the question for the event planner, what should I be looking for, and secondly, how do I stop speakers annoying me with all the things that I don't want? So why don't we just break it down to, like, as an event planner and as somebody that helps a load of event planners pick speakers, what are the things you look for, and what is the level of conversation and cadence you look for?
Well, a lot of times, it's from past experiences. Sometimes I've just known speakers that, when a company sets their clear objectives or goals for a conference, I'll say, I've seen the speaker. They're amazing. You should have them. It'll fit your objectives perfectly. So, but there's a lot of things we look for. If whatever the goal of the meeting is, does the guest speaker's topic support the goal of the meeting? If it does, then you're probably going to get shortlisted. We're probably going to take a look at you. Then from there, what's a differentiator? Like, what makes one good and one bad? Now that's where we start looking at sizzle reels and, is it a good sizzle reel? It's a bad sizzle reel. How do they speak? What are the key takeaways that our audience is going to get at the end of their speech? And then what does the speaker do to prepare for the speech? Are they, coming in the day ahead, not flying the day of? How do they prepare and talk to, the people with the company on the clear objectives and goal of the conference? Can they send us their video in advance? Will they modify and negotiate and be flexible about things? What is their price point? Let's just talk about that, right? We're just looking to see, do you fit within the budget? I will tell you, make sure that if you're negotiable, people know you're negotiable so that you don't get cut out just because of a budget matter, right? If you really want the business, if you're looking for that. So, budget items is definitely one thing. And then the schedule of event availability. Are they even available when we need them? Can they follow a CEO or a president speaking and kicking off a meeting, and how engaging they are? You can tell from a sizzle reel. If you've got a bad sizzle reel, then you're probably not going to get hired. Maybe, that's one of my suggestions. Invest money into your sizzle reel. That's where you should be putting some money because, sometimes I've looked at 50, 60, 70 different speakers for a conference and everything becomes a blur. And then I'm wondering what sizzle reel was the best, which one was the most engaging, and what was the key differentiator that supports the goals of the meeting. So those are some, things I would suggest to do if you're a guest speaker.
It's really interesting because one of the things you highlight is what's the objective of the meeting, and if you fit the objective of the meeting, you're probably going to get shortlisted. I feel like a lot of speakers don't know that. I feel like a lot of speakers will get onto a meeting and they'll talk and they'll try and convince them that their topics are great. They'll try and talk about their experience. But a lot of times when they're even inquired, they don't start by asking, what's the objective of the meeting, so I can suggest topics that best make sense. They're just trying to sell the topics that they have. How do you like when you're reaching out to speakers, do you like them asking questions like that initially, or do you just want to get to hear whether they're available or whether they're not available? Like, what, like, if they're trying to push for a phone call straight away and you're just really going in that shortlist place, like how do you suggest a speaker get that information out of you to really highlight that they fit your outcomes, as opposed to here's a whole bunch of ideas that you could that I could provide you?
I mean, don't be complacent and sit back. I mean, I would, event planners, I would say, reach out, reach out, reach out, right? Now, if you do it too much, then people might not look at the emails anymore, right? So you have to be careful. But I really feel like, you'll have relationships with some people that that bring in speakers, that bring in lists of speakers for you. And with that, what I would do is, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought again. Matthew, ask me that question again. Sorry.
No, that's all right. So what I said is, like, I think you were going on with the don't contact people too much, right? So what I said is, how can we find out what's the how do I find out what the objective is if all you've done is emailed me and said, are you available on this date, right? Is it wrong for a speaker to just ask more questions instead of just saying, yes, I'm available and here's a whole bunch of things that may support you picking me?
I always feel like you can reach out. I always feel that, it can never hurt. No is just an answer, and no can be temporary too, right? So, and yes is yes. So I don't mind that people reach out. I appreciate it. I will tell you that when you're looking at speakers, you've got like the sales training speakers, and you've got the motivational speakers, then you've got inspiration only speakers. I mean, they kind of break down into different categories. And so it would be weird if it's sales training, but you're really looking for inspirational, because I don't know. I mean, maybe there's maybe that happens. Maybe there's a speaker out there. Call me, I don't know. But normally you guys have your niche, right? Everyone has their niche of speaking. And so we're looking at, sometimes motivational and inspirational can go together. Sometimes motivational and sales, right? Yeah, we need sales training, but we need motivation too. I guess there's a lot of different topics that they can fall in, but it never hurts to reach out. It never hurts to ask the questions. But typically, your speaking topic will fall within a category, and then we're looking at categories, right? So maybe broaden your categories, but that could also take you out. So be careful, right? If your sizzle reel is too, sporadic topics going all over the place and not focused, then that's noticeable as well. So I would say it never hurts to reach out. It never hurts to communicate.
How much is too much, though? Because I'm sure that if I was emailing you every day, Deborah, and it was actually some times that I did email you every day, but we were working together at that point. But if we were kind of at that place where you just asked if I was available at a date, and I'm checking in every couple of days, like sometimes you're like, are you available on this date? And I might legitimately have another inquiry for that date. Now I'm in conflict. Do I let you know? Do I not let you know? Because I could easily get back, oh, well, if you've got another inquiry, you should absolutely take that. Like, you've probably seen people use this as closing tools, following up just because they are needy and they want assurance that they're still on your agenda. Like, how much is too much, and what's appreciated and what's not?
I mean, be real. I just had someone the other day, well, I'm entertaining other offers. And you know what I said? Entertain away. Entertain them. And honestly, that one, it depends on what it is. It gave me a little bad taste in my mouth. So, but I would say be real. If you're really, really considering another offer, then let us know, right? But what you also need to understand is on the back end, there's a process. So you're talking to us and we're working on the logistics, but there's also a planning team normally within the company, right? And then there's executives that might be engaged in that. So the decision making process might not be as fast as you'd like it to be. I do get those emails. I remember you emailing me and I was like, I'm going to get back to them. It just has to be the right time, right? And so there's that too. So I think just being a little bit of understanding of the process and asking the question to the event planner, when do you think I'll hear back from you? Do you think it's a month? Do you think it's 2 weeks? How fast are they trying to make a decision? And then if you do get an offer, just be real with them. If you're seriously considering it, Like, don't play the game, right? I mean, people do it, like, whatever. But I think you can kind of tell when people are playing the game too. Because then they'll call you 2 weeks later and say, so what were you thinking? And I'll be like, well, I thought you had another offer. So I just feel that you can communicate. I feel that just understand that there's a process behind the decision making and be patient. But I mean, I don't mind. It's not too much when you're getting closer to the event. You can't communicate enough when you get close to the event. When you're talking about, so we're twofold here, right? We're one talking about the decision to even hire a speaker in the first place. And then there's the how often can you communicate with the speaker getting ready for an event? And you can't hear enough, especially if your flight schedule changes for any reason, right? And so, in response time. So I guess it's twofold there.
Yeah, so I mean, I just interviewed you about what makes a great SKO, right? And for those people that are watching, you can check that out at matthewpollard.com. Just look up Deborah's name, you'll definitely find that interview. But for those people that are looking at the level of communication, there are speakers that think their job is to just come and speak. And I think you really broke down that that's also not even really appreciated. Like, what you really appreciate is a speaker that potentially open to having a dialogue with the president that asks for that and, wants to understand the industry and does the legwork prior. That's what's really appreciated. A stock presentation that's just entertaining, that doesn't really meet the objectives and doesn't understand what's going on in the organization, misses the mark. Do you want to, I think this really comes down to this question around what burns a relationship with an organization like yours, an event planning organization, an organization that just is an organization running their own events, and what strengthens it from that communication perspective and that initial dialogue after they've booked you.
Yeah, I really, we can talk about what burns a relationship first. I think what burns a relationship is a speaker who's ill prepared. I feel that if they just come in and plug and play, it's a very sterile presentation. It's what they do every single time. They do not customize it. They are just coming in, they're going to do their hour, and they're going to get out and make their money, and they're gone. Well, you probably aren't going to rub us pretty well, right? If you're like that for your presentation, you probably were like that with us getting ready for the event as well. And so if you're hard to deal with, if you're not flexible, if you're not going to prepare, you're probably going to burn a bridge. And then another thing that burns a bridge would be poor feedback. If we get bad feedback after a conference, then you're kind of like, you're off the list, right? I mean, we have a list of people, but you're kind of off the list. Or, I might run across your name again and I'll say, I'll never use that person again. They weren't prepared. I think that's one of the main things I have to say is be prepared. Now, what strengthens a relationship? What strengthens a relationship is preparation. I can't say it enough. Being engaged, wanting to know more about the company, wanting to set up a conference call with the key players of the conference prior to it to understand the objectives and goals of the conference. Understanding, I've even had them ask for the president and CEO to speak with them directly, and we've done that before. And wow, what a difference. So my question is, what makes a speaker different? What is your key differentiator? I'm looking for it. Tell me what it is, right? And then doing the homework, doing the preparation, and even sitting in. If you are not the first speaker up, sitting in on other speakers and knowing a little bit of the terminology. Now, do you need to know the industry? You don't really need to know the industry, right? What motivates people. And what inspiration is inspiration. Sales is sales, right? But being able to speak the language a little bit, or saying something, or ask the organizers, what should I talk about? What can I incorporate in my speech? It gives the speaker some street cred with the audience. The audience experience becomes enhanced. They're like, wait a minute, how does that person know my language? How do they speak these industry terms? And you don't even have to do it for long. You can take a couple minutes out of your speech and say something, and all instant street credibility there. So I would say planning and preparation and communication before makes you a winner. Not preparation, poor feedback, being hard to deal with, takes you off the list.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback. I mean, there are a couple of things that I'm hearing. So I have in my storytelling keynote, I have one slide that says, so how can we use story two, A, B, C, and D? And it's what came out of the president's mouth that goes on that slide. And they're like, he listened. That's all they need sometimes to go, yep, they get it. And when I do my story transformation, I know what their product set is, right? That's all I need to know, general understanding. And then, I've worked with, we were joking about this. I didn't actually expect to be talking about this on today's interview, but I'm speaking at Dead Talks in January. And Dead Talks is, the funeral parlor industry. And what was really interesting with them is the reason why they're booking me again, and they have a rule, we never book a speaker back twice. It's just, there's always another speaker that you can get, is because I customized my presentation to the funeral industry. And usually nobody does that. They just take their stock slides. They either hire in-industry speakers or they expect the speaker not to really customize it. And I did that. And the fact that they've hired me back, considering the fact that they have a rule of never getting a speaker back, says something, right? So few speakers actually do it. So if you actually take the time to do that customization, I feel that transforms. Like, I know people feel like they're not given the opportunities, but when you're given an opportunity, live up to it. And that comes with research, not just being talented. But I will say, you and I have joked about this a number of times, that you almost didn't hire me the first time because you didn't love my sizzle reel. You liked it, but you were worried, and you took somebody else's feedback that they knew I was great, but you had to trust them because my sizzle reel just didn't live up. And you gave me some pretty, I'm going to say, blunt feedback. And you said, look, I'm just going to say it as is if it's appreciated. If it's not, then, tell me to stop. And that was really helpful. So, I think for you, I think it would be really, really helpful for people to understand why you told me that. And, what makes a good sizzle reel and what was missing from mine that, even after years of speaking.
Well, I think the key thing about your sizzle reel is that I said it after you did your presentation, and your presentation on stage and everything that you did and the engagement and the customization and everything didn't equal your sizzle reel. Your sizzle reel was a little bit lackluster as compared to what you were on stage. And so there was a disconnect. So I felt like, wait, that doesn't work, right? It has to equal what he actually does on stage because it's amazing. And I wanted your sizzle reel to be the same as amazing too. When I saw it, your sizzle reel, I was like, it's okay, all right. And again, relationships and knowing people, it's a big deal, right? People don't put enough credence into that, and they should really give more because it was someone who I really, really trusted that said, Matthew's going to be great. He's going to hit the key objectives. He's going to be great. And your follow through was great too. The fact that you even asked me, you were the first guest speaker ever that I've ever hired that actually, after the interview, asked me for feedback. And so I thought, well, if you're asking, I'll give it to you. So here you go. Because thank goodness some others haven't asked me because I would have told them how I felt as well. But, and some have been amazing. And I wish I could have told them how great they were. So it goes both ways. But you were the first guest speaker that ever asked me. And I thought, it does not do him justice, his sizzle reel. He needs to really, what he does on stage needs to equate to that. So if you have money in your production budget to, make your sizzle reel great. Now, I will tell you one thing. I've seen the opposite as well, too. I've seen a really great sizzle reel, and I've seen a really bad speaker. So know that it goes both ways, too. So I'm not saying just enhance your sizzle reel and not enhance what you're doing on stage. Because it could backfire as well. It could go the other way. We can go like, wait a minute, he put so much money into producing the sizzle reel, but his stage presence is horrible. So, it can go both ways. But for you specifically, you needed to enhance it and make it better because it just didn't equate. So, definitely, but it should be the same, right? Great sizzle reel, great presentation, not off. So.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And, I'd already changed and updated my sizzle reel a couple of times. And what was really interesting is during COVID, I had to do a lot of virtual events and I had to focus a lot more on the art of speaking rather than the content. And your event was one of the first out of COVID, right? We had to do those PCR tests to get it back from Greece. And what you kind of highlighted was the energy level, and the as you said, the customization was missing. And I think that's what a lot of speakers do wrong. They think it's about the content, but it's actually about the energy. It's about the fact that you customize. There's a lot of other elements that people are trying to pick rather than just the shock and awe couple of statements. And then it's about updating it continuously. Like if you've become a better speaker, update it. I hadn't realized that. I mean, until you said that my energy was different. I remember going home going, Deborah said my energy's different. I need to watch this video. And I was like, well, can I get the video of the event, Deborah? I need to see this. But a lot of times speakers don't understand what's unique about them either. And I think that was really important. Like I was inside the problem, like any speaker is. Just like, I guess if you were giving advice to another event organizer, they're inside it for them, you're inside it for you. So I think that what I really heard here that I think will serve a lot of speakers that are listening to this is don't be afraid to actually ask and be open to the answer, even if it's not positive.
Right. That's true. I mean, look at feedback is feedback. There's no such thing as bad feedback because you need it, right? How are you going to get better year over year? You know, and you said you have to speak twice in a row. My first thought when you said that was, well, whoa, what are you going to do? You know, I would hope that you would understand their new objectives and goals for the next time and that you would customize it because I'm sure in whatever industry you're in, things change constantly. So, you know, are you going to keep up with the change? Are you going to keep up with what they're communicating? You know, I have one company that, you know, they've been launching a new product and a second version of a product. So, you know, do you know about that? Do you have some history about the company? And it's not just about who started the company, how long have they been in business, things like that you're going to speak for. It's more than that. It's, you know, what are their goals and objectives that they're trying to accomplish? And how do you support that once you're hired, or if you're hired in the decision-making process?
Yeah, I think that's really, really good feedback. I think that, you know, a lot of people that it surprised me, like our standard process, and I think this is to introverts speaking, right? Because even before this, this interview, you were like, tell me what the questions are. I need to mentally prepare. And when I'm speaking from an event, I want to understand who I'm talking to, why I'm talking to them, and what's going on. So I can't imagine not having a meeting a month before to find out exactly what the pulse of the organization is, whether they're excited or downturning, you know, what's going on, what the president's thinking. But to me, that's just, you know, if you're going to deliver a great performance, it's about learning that it's not about you. It's about the organizer. It's about the president. It's about the people that have flown away from their family to learn something. And as soon as you make it not about you, then you need to understand who the other people are. And I feel like a lot of speakers, they just get on stage, make it all about them, and they then almost get off and go, well, I hope they all got something out of it, rather than knowing because they tried to focus on that. And I'm sure that you've got experience where you can just tell that.
Yeah. Are you speaking at them? Or are you speaking with them? You know, I think that's one of the questions. If you're taking a look at your presentation, you know, speak with them, you know, because as an event planner, I want you to engage with them. I want them to feel a part of your speech. I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel that you're talking with them, not at them. I want them to not feel like it's death by PowerPoint, right? So, you know, we're looking for all those things. So I would say just make sure, you know, when you're on stage that you're speaking with them and not at people.
That's really powerful. If I was to have forgotten anything, I'm trying to wonder what it would be. Like a lot of the people that are listening to this, they're emerging speakers, they don't have the relationships. Like how would somebody like get noticed by someone like yourself or get on somebody's radar that is looking for that new gem, that new talent without, you know, blasting you with a bunch of cold emails and things that you're going to go, oh, they're going on the never again list.
Yeah. You know, I think eagerness has a lot to do with it. You know, be eager, be hungry. You know, be in the right budget. You know, a lot of times it's the right budget. You know, be willing to, you know, do things to get yourself started. You know, maybe not comp because I don't really feel like anyone should work for free, but I feel like, you know, do it where it's doable for somebody where word can start spreading. You know, reach out to people, go to networking events where you can network with people. You know, the events industry has large networking events. I would say be there, join the right organizations, be involved in that, but be eager, be willing to, be flexible and maybe, do things at a lower cost so that you can build your business, build it, and have a clear focus. Like if you are just, I'm great because I'm this and I have, you and I were talking earlier, if you have to have your credentials so long, it's kind of like, well, you need that many because you don't have any good ones, right? So, like let's take a look at this. Like let's stay focused, but that's what I would do. What story do you have to tell? I want to know what your story is. If you got a good story, you're probably going to get me interested in that. If you're going to fall within my budget, if you're going to be reasonable and negotiable, if you're going to be easy to contact. Matthew, you're one of the most easiest people to reach out to and get a response from. That has so much credibility to it that it's amazing. I've had speakers that come and go and I never hear from them again. And you know what? I never want to hear from them again. I don't put their names down just because I'm like, why would I do that to a client? How do I want the client treated? So if you're going to treat me well, Matthew, you're going to treat my client really well. But for those that don't, guess what the rub is with the client as well. So, I think you have to think about that. But be eager, be hungry, be willing to do things now to grow your business, and make connections, network.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. I'm going to ask you one last question on this because I just feel like this is going to be pinging in people's heads because a lot of times I think emerging speakers and even some really established speakers don't know what to charge, right? I feel that, a lot of times they're like, well, if I don't charge enough, maybe I'll be excluded from the selection because, if he's only charging, this amount, maybe he's not any good. Like, you've worked with people that have little budgets to large corporations. Do they actually care or do they just care that they can afford you? And is there like milestones where people are like, that's too much, that's too little? Like, help the people that are just getting started. And I mean, truthfully, it's an interesting topic for me as well. Like for people right across the speaker spectrum that are thinking about this, like, should they be like saying I'm a, this type of, this level speaker, or is it more about like time in the industry and experience and things like that, that kind of in your mind sets the budget of what's fair and what's not? Like, how do people navigate that?
Well, it's twofold, right? Like if you are a major star or a major athlete and stuff like that, there's a certain level that they feel they can't go beneath because they're a major star. But I'll tell you, some of them are just as negotiable as the next person, right? So because they need business too, right? But some people will pay that dime. But I think if you're starting out, I think I would look at what the industry, what there's got to be some standard. I don't know what it is in your industry when you start out. Start at the standard and be negotiable. That's the one thing is that not every company can afford these really expensive speakers. And I'll tell you, year over year, the speaker budget, I'll see the budget go up or the number of attendees go up, but I won't see the speaker budget go up. So be careful about that year over year. Just because it's another year doesn't mean you're going to get more money. So I would say that, whatever your industry standard is to start, I would start there, be negotiable. Look at what they do. Look at what the company does. How many people you're going to speak to, right? If you're speaking to, thousands of people versus 200, I think there's a difference in that. There's a lot more preparation you need to do for 2,000 people than you need to do for 200. Stay clear messaging. But I would say that, find out what the industry standard is and be negotiable and flexible to get started. And for those that have experience in the industry, again, there's probably some standard where year over year, you might get more expensive. We've had one speaker who is not the star, but knows a star and is really close to the star, and that's their niche. And so I've seen over the past 6 years their rate increase. You know what? And they're good, so I don't mind paying the increase. I don't mind it. So get good and then incrementally increase as you go along. That would be my suggestion.
I think that's really helpful. Like, I always price based on what I feel is fair. And I think that that's a really good judging point for people, because if you know how good you are and you know how people respond, right? So if this price is fair and if you've got better, then it's fair to charge a little more. But I love what you said about being negotiable, because I feel like a lot of speakers are like, oh, I'm going to get a reputation in the industry of, changing my price on everybody. And I'm like, the industry's not talking about you as much as you think, right? They don't know. And if you've got somebody that you're speaking to and I always look at, like, is there a commercial reason for you to reduce your price? Is there long-term business? Is there, the potential to do programs? Do they have a whole bunch of small business owners, and why you won't sell from stage? It's notoriety. There's books in there involved. There's always something. I feel that a lot of people are worried about being negotiable. And what I really feel like is they don't know how to negotiate. And I think that that's really where the issue is. So I really feel that, like, for me, as I was listening through everything that you said, Deborah, the coming back to be prepared, be planned, actually talk to people before. I mean, you're supposed to be a speaker, so talk to people prior, talk to people before the event, make sure you don't make it about you, and then be negotiable in a realistic way. I think was some really powerful stuff there. For those people that, I know that we're going to have event organizers that are looking at this video, and they're also going to have, a lot of emerging speakers. If people have kind of got questions or something really rang true and they just like, I've got this really, important question I'd love to ask Deborah, where would people best find you?
Hey, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm on that all the time. You can message me direct on LinkedIn. Now, I will tell you, due to my schedule, I'm not in it 24/7, so just know that. But I think it's a great resource just to reach out to me, ask me some questions. I'm happy to help. I've been in the industry for years. I want to share my knowledge before, someday I'm going to retire. So I really want, to spread the wealth of knowledge to emerging people, emerging speakers, established speakers. I want them to, I want the whole industry to be elevated. And so with that, I want to do my part. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will get back to you. I'll engage in a conversation. Let's be friends. I'll accept you and let's chat. And let's see what we can do and hopefully work together someday.
Deborah, thank you for being so generous with your time. And I will say, I can speak personally to that. Deborah and I will text each other from time to time. And there are some times that you don't hear from her for a week because she's on the other side of the world running an event. It's, she's busy and she hasn't slept in 3 days because some things have happened that she's got to chase up. So she's definitely very good at responding. And I will say, between us, we will text, and sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get 3 messages between us because we're both on different sides of the world. So just take that into account. Don't feel like Deborah doesn't like you. You're sometimes busy. And, also make sure you come in with having done your research, because, I know for a fact that I always offer people assistance and guidance. And then people ask questions that they haven't really thought through just because they are accessible. So think about what you want to ask, because the advice that Deborah will give you comes from years of running events and lots of events. So please, take that with, the level of gratitude that it should. But Deborah, thank you so much again for coming on and doing this with me.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Cheers.